Santa Barbara Film Festival has lost one of our family members. Mike DeGreen, underwater filmmaker and curator of the Real Nature series and the force behind Filter to the Movies, died last night. He was one of my best friends and a major force for the past 10 years for the film festival. He'll be terribly missed. Our thoughts are with his wife, Mimi, and children. His enthusiasm and sense of adventure inspired all of us, inspired me at the film festival. And knowing him well, he would have wanted us to carry on today, enjoying and celebrating movies. So, here's the mic. I need to thank Lynda.com, our presenting sponsor of the film festival. And I want to point out that last week's writers and women's panels are now available online at Lynda.com. And today's directors panel is generously sponsored by Brooks Institute. Let me introduce this amazing group of directors. Chris Miller, Puss in Boots. Jennifer Yuh Nelson, Kung Fu Panda 2. Terry George, The Shore. Paul Feig, Bridesmaids. Michel, Hazanavicius, The Artist. Gore Verbinski, Rango. And please welcome Peter Barr, who's moderated this panel for many, many times. He owns this panel. He's the editorial director of Variety. He also hosts and produces Movie Talk, which is shown on NBC and seen in 80 world countries. So please welcome Peter Barr.
Good morning, everyone. So it's nice to be in Santa Barbara, far from the madding crowd of Los Angeles during award season. The madding crowd of Santa Barbara is infinitely more congenial. And you know, the thing about this director's panel each year, that one is reminded how nice it is to be a part of the media frenzy of the superstar panels. Although a couple of years ago, just as I said that to Roger, he looked at me and said, guys, don't forget that the entire crew of 60 Minutes is in the second row. Everybody became a little more cautious about what they said. I do not believe 60 Minutes or anybody else is here, so I think we can have some fun with this.
No TMZ today, we were saying that.
TMZ is everywhere.
That's true.
So, Paul, let me start with you, because I'm going to throw out a question to each director, and then we'll just argue at random. But I remember a couple of the actors in your really brilliant movie reminded me that you shot and shot and shot, and the thesis being that a comedy really is made in the cutting room. Did you match Judd Apatow's world record for most footage?
I think Judd and I are always in the contest of who can waste the most film. So, you know it's bad when Kodak shows up with bottles of champagne on the set. So, we started doing that on Freaks and Geeks. I was told in no uncertain terms once that I would never work in this town again for all the film that I shot. But, you know what it is with comedy, I find the type that I like to do, like Judd likes to do, the worst thing you can do is just shoot the script. You know, we start out with a great script, but what happens, you just find with comedy, is something that we're all convinced is hilarious. We put it up in a test screening and it doesn't get a laugh. And that's something that we were kind of like, I don't know, was that funny or not, that somebody just experimented with or came up with on the spot, ends up being something that destroys. So it's just insurance, really, to make sure that you're getting you're covering yourself, because you never want to go in. You'll just that's why we were able to have a movie that has done well with audiences laughs-wise, because we did about 8 or 9 test screenings over the course of putting the movie together, and would just find the weak parts and then slot in the new things that we did. And it was through a combination of alternative jokes that we wrote, improv skills of the girls, and I cross-shoot when I shoot things, which is I shoot both actors at the same time, so they can surprise each other, and it happens in the moment, so you're capturing that lightning in a bottle, and that's what gives it kind of a freshness as far as it feels real. That's why I think a lot of people responded to the girls talking, because it felt like women actually talking and joking with their friends, which is kind of what it was.
So Chris Miller, on the subject of laughter, I went to see your picture with my 7-year-old granddaughter, and she laughed a lot, and I laughed a lot, but we laughed at totally different jokes. Did you intend it that way?
Well, there's certainly there's no formula, an approach, but I just look at make a movie. If I'm going to work on a film, making an animated movie, it's a 3-year journey. So you want to make sure it's going to be a film that you would definitely want to see, and that's I'm setting out to make a film that I would want to go to a theater and have that experience. And I think that covers so that covers some generations there. Knowing full well it's going to be it's intended for a family audience, but. I think we just sort of pepper the laughs in as they come and what is appropriate for any character in any scene, in any situation. And like Paul's even mentioning, there's a lot of, it's strange enough, improvisation and animation too. You're always looking for opportunities to keep it fresh. And we come up with so much material that we'll test in front of audiences or test on ourselves. And it just works out. There's something for grandpa and granddaughter, and it's just that, and you just that's how you balance it out. There's no abacus. That's for sure.
And Gore, when I went to see your picture early on, I said to myself, this is the most sophisticated and nuanced animation picture. Why would this brave son of a bitch, having just left $2.7 billion in pirates movies, undertake a picture that is sort of defies expectations? So gutsy, man. What got into you?
I don't know. I think when we first started the first pirate film, everybody thought we were crazy, and then we kind of lost. You're not the underdog. When your second film has to make $300 million at the box office, you're kind of carrying this thing on your shoulder, and it's nice to get back to the unknown, back to the feeling of you get more spring in your step, and you're very young, going, I don't know what the hell we're doing, and we're going to approach every day and kind of figure it out as we go. So the uncertainty principle, I think, is underneath all that. And just, this is the best job in the world when it continues to be an education. Grow and try things you don't, you're not quite sure how to do it.
They say louder and funnier.
Yes. I prefer the funny parts.
Now, again, in terms of gauging audience reaction, Michel, I find that audiences for your picture, a silent movie indeed, when they seem to be more profoundly moved by silence than they are when they're snowed in with dialogue. Was this part of your seditious thought process when you started that?
I think it's a combination of many things. First of all, I think the way the story is told in a silent movie.
A little louder.
And I make silent movies. You don't have to. The way it works is very specific, and because of the lack of sound, you try to feel the lack of information. So you put a lot of yourself, and you do it with your own brain, your own imagination, your own references. So it's ironic, but it looks very far from people, but it's really closer because people make the move to the story. And putting a lot of themselves, they step to the character and they step to the story. So I think they're much more involved in the storytelling. And then the second thing I think is, even in the real life, I think the really important thing, you don't say it really with words. I'm sure sometimes you just don't, you just say no word, or you look, or you take a time, you take a pause, and people understand what you mean, and you don't have to use words. So I'm sure it's a good way to say things.
Well, I played the score of your movie in my car driving down here, and it is beautiful, but my dog kept barking.
So it was exactly like on set.
But Jennifer, if I can ask you this, you are an illustrator by background, and so many of the rest of us on this panel came from the story background, but you were a storyboarder as well. How does that affect the way you think about the preparation of the movie?
I think it's because I'm an illustrator and part of animation's process is so front end. We don't get a lot of coverage that we can create in the editing room. We just don't have that luxury because we just can't animate all that stuff. So what we get to do is we make a rough cut of the film and we get to write it in drawings. And that's a real wonderful thing to be able to come in as an artist, because you get to draw your movie and write it in picture as you're working on the process. And I'm surrounded by amazing artists every day, and to see what they do is a real joy.
Interesting. Now, Terry, I am fascinated with the process by which a filmmaker chooses subject matter. Now, you moved from Hotel Rwanda to Northern Ireland. What guides you in selecting what your focus is?
The story. Follow the story. And it's basically, strangely enough, it's the same story each time. It's about communities torn apart and people within those communities who find inner strength to battle the evil that's there. So even though they're continents apart and cultures completely different, they were basically the same stories. And I have the great, I don't know if it's a plus or not, of being on this panel with a film that absolutely no one has seen. So I can say it's so fabulous. There's Pirates of the Caribbean and then there's The Shore. They're basically the same thing. Johnny Depp was supposed to be on the shore, but he couldn't quite make it. But in actual fact, The Shore is, I hope I'll be able to do a version of The Shore for Rwanda, because The Shore, this little film I made, is the bookend of Northern Ireland. It's about, it's an allegory about the peace process. And it's a comedy, which is a big step for me. And yeah, so to get back to the question, it's basically following that story of individual bravery in horrific situations. Just one thing though. Improv and animation, I gotta hear more about. What, do you like 2 drawings here? How would I have that?
Well, when we go down the panel here with this question, if I may, in the filmmaking process, which element, which decision in the process do you find most anxiety-producing? And tangential to that is a related question. How the hell do you know when a movie is really done? I mean, when you stop shooting, when you stop editing, when you finally say, okay, I'm at the mercy of the idiots in marketing. So, Gore, could you start with those, either of those 2 questions? Good, still on that.
Well, it's been very bizarre to to make an animated movie, so a completely different experience than a live action movie. And I think the anxiety in Rango was when people said you have to put actors in a room in front of a microphone one at a time. I think there was tremendous fear, and then there was a sort of, wait, we don't need, why is that a rule? Why do we give up a process that we use all the time, we're comfortable with? And so we had 20 days to put everybody together in one room, and you know, everybody comes to set with a plan, with an agenda. As a director, you come with your shots, and you have how you see the film exactly, and then every actor comes in, kind of has drawn notes in their script and has a line reading that they think they're going to do on the day. And but when you collide all that stuff together, you say something that I didn't think you were going to say, and I don't say exactly what my intention was in response to that. And so I think the anxiety in Rango was this process, this animation process that we just sort of said we're not going to do. We're not going to play by those rules. And then I think the reward was having the actors, you know, kind of do this bizarre Montessori school play. Showed up and they put on, you know, rubber guns and a hat. They were basically in street clothes, and the boom man is in every shot because it's just about the audio track. So they're running around. And it was very childish, and they were doing, you know, 10 pages of dialogue a day instead of 2. So there was a journey there.
Well, I gotta ask, was Johnny Depp, whose persona is somewhat opaque anyway, was he comfortable with the process of being a voice?
I think what was uncomfortable for Johnny in this process is that he is part lizard. I mean, he is, and we kind of caged and poked and prodded and extracted this kind of reptilian juice, you know, that we used, and it's the lifeblood of this entire endeavor. But there's no place to hide when you're in street clothes. You're not have lizard eyes. You don't have any of this stuff. So I think there was a little bit of extra bravery required in his part, and also, you know, actors, when we do these larger movies, they're going to their trailer, there's 45 minutes, they come out, they do 2 lines, you're re-rigging something, they come back, it's so bitty and piecemeal because there's usually some boat blowing up in the background or something. So to come and do 10 pages, and as many times as you say you have to be off book, this is going to be different. You know, I think the first days, everybody's got their sides crumpled up, and like, whoa, you know, 10 pages. By the end, I think they were sort of, oh yeah, acting. That feels good. And so I do scenes, and so there was a transformation. I think by the end, everybody had a great time, but certainly the first couple of days were a bit rocky.
So I would love to be at the meeting when Gore explained to Johnny Depp who Tonto is. But that's a later discussion. The next movie. Michel, in the process, which decisions were the most anxiety producing for you?
Anxiety is not really a motivation for me. So
How about fear and loathing?
No, I mean, what was really scary with that movie was financing it. And actually, what I did, I said to the first lady, we got to go to the office every day. And even if they don't say yes, if they don't say no, it's like a yes. So we go to the office every day. And so we went here in Los Angeles to scout for location and everything. So we started the preparation, and we got some money, but we didn't have enough money. So every morning, because of the jet lag, every morning I had like 3 messages from the producer. This was really scary because I thought, okay, we have to go back to France and stuff. And actually we found a way, he found a way, he put his own personal money to fill the gap of the budget. And I agreed to it. Yeah, exactly. it's exactly what it is. And I agree to make the film in 35 days. So we found the combination to make it. But to me, I don't know if it's about anxiety, but the most important thing is what you said just before. I mean, when you choose a movie, I think it's the most important. After, because you have a hunch of what could be the movie, but nobody worked on it really. So you have to, because I write it and direct it, there's nothing at the beginning. So you have to, you take a decision without knowing exactly what will be the movie. So that's the story.